Our fighter verse for this week will be found in the book of Habakkuk. Now, Habakkuk is one of the minor prophets in the Old Testament, and this book is found closer to the end of the Old Testament. So go ahead and start turning there. Find the book of Habakkuk. And our fighter verse will be found in chapter 3, the very last chapter of Habakkuk. Now, I would recommend to you something that would be very helpful to do is to read chapters 1 and 2 and chapter 3 to get an idea, or you get the context of our fighter verse for this week. And our fighter verse will start in chapter 3 of the book of Habakkuk, beginning with verse 16, and then verse 17, and then verse 18, and then verse 19. Our fighter verse will be Habakkuk chapter 3, verses 16 through 19. And I would set this challenge to you this week. Meditate upon these verses every day this week. Begin your day by reading these 4 verses. And hopefully what happens at the end of the week is that these verses are burned into your memory. Now, a reason that we're going to look at all 4 of these verses is because the end of Habakkuk ends with 3 I will statements. And these I will statements are a conclusion to everything that we have read and heard Habakkuk say, starting with chapter 1. It's very important. So go ahead and read chapter 1 this week and chapter 2 so you can appreciate these 3 I will statements. So let's read it. Habakkuk chapter 3, starting in verse 16. I hear, my body trembles, my lips quiver at the sound. Rottenness enters into my bones, my legs tremble beneath me. And here it comes, the first I will statement. Yet I will quietly wait for the day of trouble to come upon people who invade us. Verse 17. Though the fig tree should not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, the produce of the olive fail, and the fields yield no food, the flock be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls. Verse 18, second I will statement. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. Here comes the third I will statement. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. God, the Lord, is my strength. He makes my feet like the deer's. He makes me tread on my high places. And now watch this. This is how Habakkuk ends. This to the choir master with stringed instruments. So I take it that by the end of the book of Habakkuk, we are to sing. Oh, it's to help our singing, is to help our worship, is to help our rejoicing. He says the word rejoice in those verses. So part of the aim, or maybe the big aim of this week's fighter verse, is to call upon God to lead us to sing. God, lead us to sing, lead us to worship, lead us to rejoice. When, ... And I thought about it this way from verse 17. When those things that I find so much security in fail, when the economy fails, when my wealth fails, when fill in the blank fails. And yes, verse 17 causes us to look at those things in our lives that give us so much security. When those things fail, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. Choir master, lead us in stringed instruments because of who God is. So my prayer as you meditate, and as I meditate upon these verses all week, will be this. God, lead us when all else fails. Lead us to rejoice. Lead us to take joy in the God of my salvation. And maybe we should start with that first I will statement. God, lead us to wait patiently for what you are going to do.